Since we are okay technologically, and technology will help us to have a good interaction between us, let me welcome everybody on behalf of the Board of Directors and participants here. We are very happy that we'll have a good interaction with members of our Community Advisory Board. And let me express our gratefulness for all the work you've been doing in your countries and for all the support you've been given to TIF throughout these very difficult times that we're all going through. It is really very strange International Thalassaemia Day. We are honoring 2020 International Thalassaemia Day under very, very unique conditions. Under the shadow of a real tragedy consequent to the pandemic, COVID-19, but also in the shade of innovative discoveries, the authorization of the gene therapy drug, the authorization of the positive opinion for the European Commission for the new drug that we've all been waiting for. Therefore, despite the fact that the theme of this year's International Thalassaemia Day is access and availability to every patient with thalassemia across the world to innovative therapies, drugs, and curative methods. And despite the difficult times that we're in, we still feel that we should continue to struggle. We should continue to fight for access to new therapies. And first and above all, the message from the President that has kindly asked me to pass on is that the most important effort that each one of you that represents TIF in your countries, and of course thalassemia in your countries, should be to collaborate with your governments, your national health authorities, and your treating healthcare professionals so that we can have an as interrupted as possible medical care of thalassemia patients. This is very important, both to fight the pandemic, to fight the infection, but also to keep us in a condition that we could introduce shortly, I hope, in every country, for every patient, innovative drugs and therapies. Having said that, we go ahead, I'll hand the floor to Michael Angastiniotis, who will shortly describe what are these new innovative therapies that we're talking about in the middle of a pandemic and how we feel, and then we can have your views and a productive interactive discussion that will honor this webinar, and your voice and your views will honor this year's International Thalassaemia Day. Mike.
Okay, good afternoon or good morning, everybody, according to where you may be listening to us or communicating with us. I am delighted for a change after about 5 or 6 weeks to be dealing with something other than COVID-19 pandemic. I'm delighted actually to return back to our everyday concerns, and our main concerns and the theme of today's motto, if you like, for this Thalassaemia Day is the access, as Androulla said, and affordability of the new innovative therapies. Now, as you are well aware, the two main ones that have already reached the market, already have reached approval, are luspatercept, under the trade name of Reprosil, and gene therapy under the name of Zinteglo. These are the ones that have reached that particular point. There are others waiting in the pipeline. There are new drugs being developed, mostly in the preclinical stage. There are also new approaches to the genetic therapies. For example, gene editing is being developed by various firms. The question is, are these going to benefit our patients in the near future? Somehow in the distant future, more patients will be available, but not right now. Patients are going to be in the difficult position of seeing a cure or a medication that will improve their state and not be able to reach it. And there are two reasons for that. The first, of course, is what we all see, and that's the cost. The cost is high, even for middle and high income countries, and not just for low income countries. The second, of course, is the difficulties of manufacturing enough medications to satisfy the needs of many patients. These are biological therapies. There is biological development which is not so easy. It doesn't lend itself so easily to manufacturing in massive amounts, in adequate amounts. The same with gene therapy. It's not the kind, it's an individualized therapy. It's not the kind of therapy that we can very easily distribute to as many patients as possible. So there are these two main factors at the moment. Affordability, which is very difficult, and I don't need to expand on that, and technical difficulties. There are other issues. Amongst the technical difficulties, for example, we may discuss in gene therapy the issue of the need for an auto-transplant procedure, which means marrow ablation and all that it entails. So there are many issues to be discussed. At the end of the day, what TIF would like is for TIF office and you in particular, our expert patient groups, to work together to advocate for increasing the acceptability, accessibility and affordability of these therapies. And advocacy has to go to two main directions. One, governments who are going to finance these treatments, and B, the companies that have to provide us with the treatments themselves. So my plea is for you to tell us how you feel about this, to tell us how we can best work together to promote new treatments, because the coronavirus, yes, it's a big headache, but it's a headache that's going to pass eventually. Having innovative treatment is a necessity that we have been waiting for decades. So.
And I just wanted to finalize this introduction by saying that we hope that the pandemic will go without leaving tragic consequences, because at TIF we are very concerned that we may have tragic consequences in the care, in the quality of care of our patients across the world. Having heard all your opinions in the previous webinars, we are very worried, and we are very, very much interested for this to end as soon as possible in every country, so that we don't go decades behind in our quality of care and then not being able to talk about utilizing and having access to these new therapies. So, having said that, let me give the floor, as the program indicates, to Seymour Baghbanli. Seymour from Azerbaijan, please let us have your views on the subject. Unmute, yeah.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hello, Seymour.
I would like to thank you at first to invite this session, which will be shared on the 8th of May with global thalassemia community via social media. And using this chance, I want to say greetings and regards from Azerbaijan to all thalassemia community all over the world. And I congratulate all of you as the Thalassaemia International Day. Best wishes and healthy life to all thalassemia patients.
Can we go to Riyad and perhaps we can come back in the end to Baghbanli. Riyad, are you online?
Yes.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Nice to hear you.
Yes, it's good to see everyone. I'm happy that we're organizing this. Thank you, Androulla and Dr. Angastiniotis. Now, what I want to start with is because of the COVID-19, a lot of the patients in Canada and I think in the US as well are looking into starting on Reblozyl, on luspatercept, because they are, think it will reduce their visits to the hospital, it will reduce their intake of blood, the blood requirements. So there is some excitement from what I see on social media and patients discussing.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yes, we are, the Celgene has submitted for approval in Canada to Health Canada. So it is in the process. And we, as the Thalassemia Foundation of Canada, are working on making a patient input submission so that it will be, it will present a point of view of patients collectively, and also it will help have coverage for the medication, which we don't know, but it's something we have to work towards. So that's, yeah. And as you know, we've already had patients on trials for the Belief trial here in Toronto under Dr. Kevin Coe. And, a lot of patients are happy with it. So that's something we are looking forward that is, very attainable in the near future, hopefully by the fall or end of the year. So we'll keep you posted on that. Now, the other thing is gene therapy, which I know it has been very successful in the places where there has been trials. In July, I was at the patient conference in the U.S., the Cooley's Anemia Patients Conference, and many patients uh, have done those procedures and are living without requiring blood transfusions. So there are successes with that. There are some very good stories. Now, the availability of this in Canada hasn't been yet, so we will have trials sometime soon. I know it was supposed to happen this coming fall, but or it's so it has been delayed because of the COVID-19. So there might be some delays with that. But again, we are hoping that we will start that at some time. And then we have to talk about the coverage and who's going to pay for it. Exactly. And I think that's a common problem for everybody. But we're hoping that here with a public healthcare system that there will be some coverage, at least for the younger patients or those who really need it or those who could really benefit from it. So we don't know yet, and that's the discussion that's going to go on. And I know they are going for similar discussions about this in other countries, in the US for sickle cell, definitely, which is going to be much harder to show evidence of how it works because there are no measures. You don't have data on their hospitalization cost and on all, the expenses related to their treatments. It's not as easy as it is for thalassemia because you know what the transfusion is, you know what the chelation is, and it's pretty much easier to show some statistics on that. So this is something that we're going to work towards. Again, there's been a lot of successes on that, and we're hoping we will have some successes here as well with the trials. In terms of the COVID-19, it's been quite bad for everyone, and it's bad in the sense that it hasn't been a huge infection rates or a huge death rates. The last numbers is 60,000 of infected 4,000 of deaths in Canada. So it's not huge compared to the population, but it has been a pretty much a shutdown, not a lockdown. So a lot of businesses are not open. A lot of delays in transactions, and you know that. So business wise, and for the society, people are staying at home. They are complying with the restrictions. But I think as we're getting closer to the summer, it's becoming more problematic and people getting frustrated. When we go to the hospital, the screening is at the front entrance of the hospital for everybody. And then as we go into the clinic, we are screened for, again, we're asked the same questions: if we have temperature, if we have any of the symptoms, if we've traveled. And the nurses and the hospital staff are very careful. They are wearing gloves, masks, and even shields. So they are protecting the patients in that sense. They are practicing the 2 meter distancing by having less patients in the transfusion lounge. They limit it to about six. We have a large area, so it used to be 10 patients, 11 patients sometimes. Now it's six, so it's cut in half. And then they are using more spaces like some isolation rooms or areas that patients can be apart from each other. Now, in terms of the treatment, blood shortages, we haven't really experienced that. There's been a decline in blood donations at the initial 2 weeks of the COVID-19 outbreak, but with massive campaigning and pleading, the blood donors, kindly have responded very positively, and we have been we're in a green phase. We're monitoring the situation, keeping an eye on things, but the shortages also has not been affecting the red blood cells, which is good. There's been some situations where some hospitals have given patients less blood, and it could be some of it for logistic reasons, it could be for some errors, but sometimes in the smaller hospitals, the treatment is not very good because there's a lack of expertise. So they still think that if a patient is below 7.5, then he doesn't need to have transfusion, which we are working dealing with that on a case by case as we find out about it, because we try to keep the pre-transfusion level anywhere between 9 and 10.5. So the other thing is there's been also shortages.
No infection of any patient with
Not
SARS-CoV-2
not that we have known of.
that you have registered or been
Yeah.
known? Okay.
We don't know, but we will, we're asking, we're keeping, in touch with the medical community. Uh, the So the blood shortages is really not there. The other issue has been a little bit of shortages in drugs, namely hydroxyurea, amoxicillin, and naproxen, and these are mostly for sickle cell. Some of the thal intermedia, as you know, could benefit from those. But what we have is shortage of Desferal. So there is the generic Desferal that is being in shortage, and I believe it's produced by Pfizer. So we're trying to talk to the medical community to see exactly what is happening. Just they've been overwhelmed, so the response from the medical side has been not very good, I should say. But I've talked to Novartis, and they promised that they are working into filling those gaps by providing their brand name product, the Desferal,
So what
for to fill in the gaps.
Riyad, what's the percentage of your patients taking this for monotherapy or in combination?
Uh,
Because I
it's hard.
it's a big one since you're talking about finding solutions.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of patients on Jade New or X-Jade, and there's been a generic product of these even here in Canada, and a lot of patients are on Feriprox. I would say there's still a good number on Desferal. I can't really give you a good data, but I would estimate anywhere between, probably looking at about 20%, if not more.
Thank you very much, Riyad.
Yeah.
This has been really a very, very useful conversation, and the marriage of the new drug with the COVID-19 needs in terms of blood shortages. That makes a lot of sense in healthcare systems like Canada that can really, go forward and think about using it at the right moment. I could say that it's a tragic moment, but it's also the right moment for the healthcare systems that can take it up. And thank you very much. We would like to hear more, but may I introduce Ali Sattarpour for his review, please, in France. What is happening in France?
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, Ali.
Hello, hello. In France, we are tired to be at home, at least.
Yes.
For 2 months now. And about the new therapies, I know there is a lot of trials. I know people will use the Lustra strep, and I know they make space between their transfusion, and they have space their transfusion in 6 weeks before there was in 4 or 3 weeks. I participate also to the Lustracep trial next year, but after 2 injections, I had thrombosis on my legs, and I had embolism pulmonary, and I had to stop.
Discontinue it.
Yes, but actually with 2 injections, my hemoglobin was 11. So it seemed to be work, but at least I had to stop. About gene therapy, I used to, before the COVID-19 crisis, we had to participate with Bluebird in a conference, but it was cancelled, and maybe we used to go to this conference in September. If we can, I don't know if it will be possible, but I will know more about gene therapy, what happened in France. As I know, in my center, the doctor, I heard he say it seems to work, and we have 1 patient who will have gene therapy on trial. But I don't know more about what happened to him.
France will, has entered in clinical trials and will very seriously consider the use of these innovative drugs. Any news about infection of patients with either thalassemia or sickle cell disease with the COVID?
Yes. I know 2 patients with COVID-19. They were at hospital, but now they go out. They had hydroxychloroquine and antibiotics. I know only 2 in Paris area. I don't know in Marseille. As an association, they don't give this information.
They will publish it. I'm sure they will publish it, but it means that there are a few patients in France, maybe 4 to 6 patients, as we hear unofficially. So the good thing about all of them is that they are either mild symptoms and quickly discharged, and that is the positive perspective of the thalassemia infection.
Yes.
Thalassemia. Thank you so much, Ali.
Thank you to you.
How are things in Germany? Kostas, Tsurlis.
Hello, Androulla. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very well, very clearly. Thank you.
And can you see me also?
Not yet,
Not
but
yet.
we will shortly see you.
Can you see me now?
Roy is trying to. We were looking at before.
Hello. Switch on your camera.
Can you see me now?
No, but we can hear you. Let's hear you out in the meantime, and then we can see you well. So
yeah, I don't know. I seem to have some trouble with my webcam. Anyway, so I must start with patient's perspective on the new developments, and we are watching the developments with great interest here in Germany, and there is a lot of discussion going on continuously among patients, whether it's gene therapy or an erythroid maturation agent, so Reblozyl, which especially in this time is concerned as some relief if this going to happen again with the shortage of blood transfusion and so on. So it's made one more time more clear that we need here an improvement. As for the concerns and questions, they go on. So I think they can be mainly summarized as the following. Will it be access for everyone? Will the insurance company cover it? Are there any requirements for participation? For example, does the trade play a role, beta 0, beta plus, and so on? What are possible side effects or adverse reactions? And last but not least, do secondary diseases affect the treatment and vice versa? So these topics and these questions are rule the discussions going on, and this is a very vital discussion, I might say. So we are all waiting with almost impatient for the release of Reblozyl, but also Zynteglo, and it might be a slight decline in interest, so to say. Oh, no, let me put it that way. As for the younger patients, there's interest in both of these new developments. In the quite older patients, I might say maybe there is more the interest in Reblozyl or in erythroid maturation agent. So after all these years dealing with the disease, it's somehow enough in court marks to have an ease in transfusion regimen, and we have learned to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think this is what I had to say for the patient.
Kostas, any infection of any peer of yours with the virus? No infection?
Yeah, I will come to that next. As far as I have heard, we had only one infection in one male patient, not so young, so it was not a quite young patient, but with very mild symptoms and no serious events.
Okay, thank you very much.
As for the As for the COVID-19, I must say that of course it has an impact to the whole humanity, and especially to those with severe conditions such as thalassemia and SCD. It had caused a lot of fear and insecurity, especially to those with secondary diseases and our splenectomized patients. We had, and I think we still have, a shortage in the vaccine, the pneumococcus vaccine, but I believe this is not a national, but more an international issue. I don't think that it's only in Germany, this shortage. We had a shortage in blood units at the beginning, but this has been solved quite quickly. I think this is also because Germany has reacted pretty quick. And with very strict rules, and that's why we also didn't have any serious cases up to now. On the other hand, the stay-at-home policy and the fact of belonging to a risk group, I do believe, has a quite heavy psychological impact to us. And I would like to underline this, that we must not ignore the psychological impact this has. So not only have our eyes on the medical issues for thalassemia and SCD, but also the psychological impact. And I would just to end my report, I would say, in my opinion, what we do need now is a united and unified way of handling with the virus regarding thalassemia and SCD, especially since every country has a quite individual view of the interaction with the same problem. And we need an official guide that has been tailored, so to say, by experts in thalassemia and SCD for all our patients globally. And because, especially because there are some questions that are very specific then for our condition, like how is it with remdesivir, how is it with hydroxychloroquine, and questions that then are too special for our diseases. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You raised very important points. First of all, you're living in a country with a robust healthcare infrastructure. They've taken preventative measures early enough. They were going by strategy. The important thing here is that this pandemic, when it goes, will hopefully leave very tragic consequences for countries like Germany. Generally, in Europe, we do find that the medical experts have provided such measures from the beginning that have not perhaps allowed the virus to show itself to patients with thalassemia. Luckily, of course, on the one hand, but on the other hand, we do not have any experience of the clinical impact of the virus on these patients sufficient enough, documented enough to actually go to the further steps ahead that you are mentioning of the effect of chloroquine and other antiviral drugs on thalassemia patients. What we were hoping, of course, having said that in a very good sense, is to have had experience from the developing part of the world, where we were thinking that more patients would have been infected due to the belated measures, due to the different healthcare structures, due to the large populations and sort of gathering of the patients, not keeping distances, public transport. But we do not have, I do not want to use the word sadly, we are happy that we don't have. If it's a reality that we don't have infected patients, then we would congratulate everyone. But if we don't have registered infected patients because of underreporting or no reporting in the developing world, then that is a huge problem that would not allow us to understand the impact of this virus on this disease. Of course, as we speak, data is being accumulated, and more data regarding sickle cell disease, I think, because of course the population is bigger. And perhaps by the end of the month, we'll be able to see how numbers are in order to see better, understand better. The guidelines that you're talking about for prevention or for the use of drugs on thalassemia infection has to come from international experts, of course, but international experts need also evidence, need enough numbers and enough comprehensive clinical data to allow them to make recommendations. Let us hope that by the end of the month, a lot of this information would have been collected so that we can have some kind of guidelines. For the moment, we are using German, French, and UK guidelines, and we are preparing them, we are drafting them as we speak at TIF so that we can distribute them. Let's hope that we have more data by the end of May. Can I have Maria Natasha, please, on the line?
Hello. Hello.
I'm sorry, it's Anubha next one. Sorry, Anubha, I've missed your turn. Anubha, welcome from India, and let us have your views, my dear. Sorry, Natasha, Anubha's turn.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Dr. Androulla and Dr. Michael.
Hi.
It is a pleasure to be here, and very interesting questions indeed. So, as far as topic number 1 is concerned, treatment, well, the conversation has had its own journey in India, because as far as Reblozyl is concerned, when it was announced, there was euphoria, there was celebration, and patients were really excited to hear about it. So much so that we even reached out to the Ministry of Health, because we do know that they have managed to get hepatitis drugs under National Health Mission. So we were just wondering whether they could help us in some way under the National Health Mission, because that would have taken care of everything. Gradually, the excitement ebbed because there was some lobbies and some sections of the fraternity talking about the futility of reduction of blood dependency, and how gene therapy would be more effective, because in a country like India, where resources are limited, how much can you really get excited about something that only reduces blood dependency? So there were divided opinions, and while we were still at it, we were still wondering what to do and what kind of advocacy to design. We had COVID, and I think COVID provided some kind of an answer to these conversations, and then the journey went ahead, and people got excited about Reblozyl all over again. Because there was so much struggle over blood. There was so much insanity around transportation, because people come from all over. For instance, satellite cities. People in satellite cities were traveling from to the main cities for transfusion, and they started wondering whether any drug which can even reduce this transportation, which can even reduce the visits to hospitals, would be good enough. So it's been really interesting to see how conversation has changed, and how suddenly there is an appreciation of anything and everything that would reduce visits to hospitals. I don't know how short lived that is, and whether this would change after there is some kind of resolution to COVID, if at all. So much on treatment. On the advocacy side, of course, we have been mulling over what to do, whether to approach the government, but COVID has put everything everything has come to a standstill. But there is enough excitement. On the second part of the conversation, I think the kind of attention that the thalassemia fraternity in India has received from the government, from the industry chambers, from the corporate sector, from the media, is unprecedented. Because of COVID, we had something to say every day. Sometimes we were not getting blood. Sometimes we were not getting transportation for the donor. Sometimes we were not getting transportation for the patient. Sometimes somebody who was getting NAT tested blood in their hospital were forced to take whole blood in their local nursing home.
Yeah.
So every day we were getting an opportunity, sad opportunity, but we were getting an opportunity to interact with the minister, the minister's aides, the Ministry of Home Affairs, Delhi police. So everybody got to know about thalassemia. And we got immense support from media in terms of coverage, donations, everything. So much so that we will now be celebrating the 8th May with an industry chamber, which is for first time in the history of Thalassemics India and T-PAG. I think also the second and the last aspect is how patients have come together. Patients who were inactive also, they have organized themselves state-wise, and there is a team working in every state, and the way patients have started using social media, like I said, that we've also got the attention of Ubers and Facebooks of the world because of our issues. So the way patients have used Facebook for donor hunting, the way they have started helping each other, they have formed groups, they are interacting with police authorities. So I think all this is really very heartening. As far as infection incidents are concerned, I have heard of 2 incidents so far. And I can't even say whether, they were only symptoms or they were even confirmed. So out of the 14,000, sorry, you're asking something?
No. Out of the 14,000, only 2 patients have been reported.
Yeah, so 14,000 is the overall, confirmed patients in India. And I have so far only heard of 2 patients. But there is one issue that, time and again we keep hearing that hospitals come up with all sorts of rules for thalassemia patients. There is no uniformity. There are some hospitals which want you to do COVID test before coming to transfusion every time.
Oh my God.
So these are, and then there are some hospitals which are allowing you to do it once and then come. These tests are extremely expensive. They unnecessarily expose patient to the hospital.
Yes, of course.
So these issues are problematic. Shutting down of transfusion centers. Then we have to talk to the media, to the government authorities. Then these guys open up the transfusion center again. So believe me, it's been very eventful. We haven't had a dull day ever since lockdown. Every day there's a new issue. But the good news is that we've managed pretty well so far, and the way patient community has come together to work with government and media, that is heartening to see.
Thank you very much. That very interesting.
Anubha, you are impressing us very much with the importance of patient support groups, especially the patient advocacy groups, because you have really obviously played a very important role in trying to control your thalassemia patients with this, and protect them from this virus?
Thank you very much for this important news. Although my worry again is on the underreporting side of the story.
Androulla, one moment, please. Anubha.
If 2 patients out of 14,000 have been reported, it means that the rate of infection in this patient population is significantly lower than in the general community, which is really either impressive or not true. But nevertheless, George, can we just continue and then ask your question because we are short of time? Natasha, can we have your story in Indonesia, please? Thank you, Anubha. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello. So in Indonesia, we still need to have transfusion because the innovative therapy like gene therapy or luspatercept haven't applied here, even haven't started the trial yet. So yeah, we still need to have blood transfusion regularly. Before at first, they reduce our we need to go to the hospital. They reduce the time, but now it's the same because there are some cases that if we reduce the time, they go to the hospital. If they if we wait until they below the hemoglobin level and below 9, they will come. There are so many cases that the patient with thalassemia come with the hemoglobin level 4 and 5 and below 7, like that. So now there are the regular transfusion are still the same with in the same time, like 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, yeah. And the patient needs to come back every 2 weeks. And the blood stocks still but the blood stocks, they don't need more blood donors to bring, like that.
Yeah.
Because the hospital started to have like a blood donors event, so the donors can come to the hospital directly to donors to the in the blood bank, like that. There are some events in some hospital, like that. And also for the patient with COVID, I don't hear the updates about her, and I'm not sure there are more patient that the thalassemia patient that come with COVID. I don't think so. Until this time, there are maybe just 2 patients reported with COVID, like that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. 2 patients.
Caecilia, just one question. What's happening outside Jakarta? Your country is vast with so many islands. Do you know the situation outside Jakarta?
I'm not really sure outside of Jakarta, but I have a report that there is just blood lacking of there's a lacking of the blood, and they really need to have the donors, like that. And but they are still doing transfusion, and all are the same in Jakarta. And also I don't know, there's a case outside Jakarta about COVID or not, I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much. Hadibur, can we have your, we've heard about Iran, but please, can we have your update? Thank you so much. Hadibur? trying.
Hello, Androulla?
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I got kicked out while you were talking to me, and I didn't get all what you have said. So maybe afterwards, when it's time,
Yes.
can you?
Yes, of course.
Can we come back to that?
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay, I will shut my microphone again.
Okay, my dear.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Hadibur? Can we go to Sarawak, please? Fazalena, Sarawak, from Malaysia. A Malaysian friend, Fazalena.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Faza. I'm from Malaysia. Okay, talking about the new therapies. Okay, first, luspatercept. I just share my experience since I'm participating in this clinical trial since 2016. So the time when TIF released about this drug last week, I mean, they post something about this drug. I share in my Facebook, and for sure, a lot of patients interesting about this drug. So, and in there's one time in our Thalassaemia Connect, even the TIF WhatsApp, I also share my experience, and I got a lot of feedback from other patients from other countries asking me about this drug. So what I can share is that it's actually it's helped me a lot. It less burden for blood transfusion. Before this, I transfuse once every month, but now 2 pint, and now I only transfuse every 3 weeks, but only 1 pint. So it reduced a lot, and then it's also improved my serum creatinine from 3,000, 2,000 now become less than 500. So when other patients heard about this, so they're quite interesting, but the main issue will be the cost of the drug itself, because when I think about last year, November 2019, they released some press release about the price of luspatercept is around 3,441 USD, which is cost about, for ringgit Malaysia, about 15,000. Is very, very expensive. So, and that's the main problem for this drug. But in terms of efficiency and effectively, it's quite very effective. But I'm not sure because we have 5 patients, 6 patients at a time in my place, but only a few of us that can tolerate with this drug. So I can say it's not every patient can tolerate with this drug. And then for gene therapy, in Malaysia, we don't have any experience in this, but for sure as a patient, we're looking forward because this is a hope. Both of this drug is a new hope for thalassemia patient for the whole world. And then for COVID-19, so far in Malaysia, we don't have any thalassemia patient infected with COVID-19. Even though we have 6,428 cases in Malaysia and with 107 deaths, but we don't have any thalassemia patient from what I know. In my place, they practice social distancing in our daycare center. And then less patient for sure for every appointment. We have every day from Monday to Friday, and we got about, before this, about 50 to 60 patients per day, but now it become less than that, around 20 to 30 patients, because we mix with other hematology patients, which is include leukemia, cancer, hemophilia. So it becomes 20 to 30 patients, and about 5 thalassemia patients will come for blood transfusion every day. And then the other issue during this COVID pandemic is blood supply. And I think most of the country will face this kind of problem. And for me, as a patient, we're just doing our part. We help our blood bank center when they promote the blood donation campaign. We will help them to spread the news through social media, and it's helped a lot. And then like we have our own Facebook for Federation of Malaysian Thalassaemia Society, and our local Thalassaemia Society, which is Sarawak. So every time they post, every state, if they have problem with insufficient blood supply, I will help them to spread the news in our social media platform. like Facebook, like Instagram. So at least public know what happens in our country now, which is insufficient blood supply for not only for thalassemia but for other diseases also.
Thank you.
So yes.
Thank you very much indeed. Are you thalassemia intermedia or major?
HBE beta thal major.
Yeah, major. Thank you so
Yes.
much. Thank you, and keep safe, please.
Okay, thank you.
Can I go to Issa Ali and see if we can hear you? Issa Ali.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Androulla.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Dr. Michael.
Hello.
Here in Trinidad and Tobago, we're very enthusiastic and thrilled about the exciting and hopeful news of these innovative and new therapies for thalassemia. And I think it's been a very long wait and a little lull period. And I think it's a wait well worth it. Our patients obviously are very delighted that these new therapies will have possible capabilities of perhaps prolonged rate of their survivals, as well as the enhancement of their qualities of life or improvement of their quality of life. So it is great hope that these therapies, the two therapies at this point, would obviously be affordable. I mean, it's a wish and a hope that it will be affordable and therefore readily available for use by our thalassemia community as soon as possible. With regards to COVID, in Trinidad, we had 116 cases, of which so far none of our patients have been reported, and we are keeping a close monitor on all our patients, and so far none of our patients have been reported with COVID-19. However, they understand that.
Inaccurate. Yes, sir. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah. That they are very vulnerable, and as such, they take very heightened precautions issued by our Ministry of Health, and I think that has helped them a lot. A lot of them are staying home, and therefore that has also helped as well. Our clinics are postponed for now, but our main thalassemia treatment room is open and open for our patients to receive their blood transfusions and urgent services. However, due to the pandemic, our major problem is, as per usual, blood shortages, and it has increased because persons are not going out to donate blood because for the fear of what is happening. Our regular blood donors are not coming out, and it is making it very difficult for our patients. Sometimes they have to go to the center 2, 3, 4 times to actually get blood. Of course, we always had a blood shortage problem, but it has been severely affected in this period, in the last month or two. So we obviously will continue to do as a patient advocacy group. We'll continue lobbying to see how we could get persons to come out, how we could partner with organizations who pursue blood donations, and see what best we could to get blood to our patients. So
okay. Thank you very much. That was really, so blood shortage was the only challenge, let's say, in the whole.
At this point, it is, because our patients are doing well, they're staying away, and they're taking all the necessary precautions. So, and from Trinidad and Tobago, pretty happy that we're doing okay so far. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all at TIF for doing such a great job and for keeping us connected. Thank you so much. This is a very, very challenging time. It's a very difficult time. It is nice to know that you can connect with us. And thanks to the TIF staff behind you that are doing an amazing job in ensuring that our family is connected. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And please keep safe, and please keep an early conversation with your government regarding the new innovative drugs, because we are hopeful that we'll get out of the pandemic soon. As we know, we're going out of the pandemic very soon.
Do you think your government will accept to finance patients for the new therapies?
Of course, I think we were at the start of conversations with them, and then COVID-19 came. And of course, all the resources and everything has been towards COVID-19. So I think once this period has passed, I think we will re-engage conversations, and it is hopeful.
Exactly.
Despite a world economy that is fluttering, I think we still have a good chance.
Yeah, the economy is taking tragic directions. I agree with you very much, and it is a difficult situation to start. But as always, thalassemia patients are very empowered, and I think that we'll continue with the same strength. George,
thank you for the support.
Thank you very much, sir. George, can you give a final statement? You know, in your own words of the whole situation.
Yeah. Now, before I do that, Androulla, do we have any idea where these new innovative treatments are available, not as trial, but as treatment? Because as far as I know, there are not many countries that have luspatercept available, let alone gene therapy.
No.
We're all talking about it, but where we...
George, luspatercept has only been approved.
I don't think it's available anywhere.
No, in Europe it has not been finally approved, as you know.
It's only approved in the USA and FDA, so that patients in the USA can get it.
And I think there are some patients in the USA and Canada, as Riyad said, they are.
But in Europe it hasn't yet passed.
EMA, correct.
Yeah.
So
in Europe, all people that have been using it have been in the context of clinical trials.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, and the experience is there. The doctors have the experience, and I think when they start using it, they will already have a lot of knowledge and experience. So, how are you doing?
Okay, so the only reason I wanted to do that is to highlight that there's going to the issues of this innovative treatment, how wonderful it is, and how really we've been all waiting for so many years, is still not totally there. And the biggest hurdle, I think, it's going to be the cost.
Of course.
It
was a hurdle, and now with the pandemic, it's going to be a double hurdle.
Exactly. This is exactly the problem. The existence of coronavirus and the acts that all the governments have taken in order to protect the country's economies and all the rest of it, it's going to make available cash very, very limited. Now, the situation in England, as far as I know, is that luspatercept is in the process of going through EMA. Of course, England is beginning not to be under the EMA rules, but soon. So presumably they're also discussing with NICE. I was aware of the discussions that were taking place, but I think COVID-19 saw to the death for that until later. The same, I think, with gene therapy. Bluebird Bio were in discussions with NICE and so forth, but I think they've actually suspended any treatment or any trials or anything new, as far as I'm concerned. So for me, the biggest problem is going to be how to convince the governments. Pharma is not going to be convinced to do anything unless the governments are the people who are going to really pressurize them.
Yeah, George, the only thing that can help with the industry is to have a global collaboration. Because if we join in hands with the different governments and we produce big numbers and big requests, I think that's going to save us a little bit in making a better discussion with the industry.
Yes, I agree. So our lobbying and our pressurizing should be towards the government side. And if possible, 2, 3 government ministers getting together in order to do that. That's going to be the only way. Because as far as we can see,
George, because you are a board member and you know that we have launched a TIF, the International Forum for Access and Availability to Innovative Care. That initiative needs to be supported by every one of you on this webinar. every member of the Community Advisory Board needs to take up this role and speak with the government to see which governments can join hands. Because as you very well said, if 4 or 5 governments at the beginning join hands and press, I think a lot will follow.
Correct. I couldn't agree more.
Sorry, George, another avenue, if you remember the same sort of debate concerning HIV treatment, antiviral treatment in the HIV epidemic, international agencies like WHO actually joined forces also.
Yes.
And it may be productive if we can get them on board as well.
Yeah.
I think anybody who would be able to, because...
Oh, we've lost you.
On what decisions that they've made. And it's going to need a lot of pressure, like bone marrow transplant. You remember when it first started, it was unreachable amount of money that they wanted. Anyway, and going to COVID-19, you're absolutely right, Androulla. It looks too good to be true.
Exactly.
And I agree with you.
Exactly.
It seems that something is not really...
To say something that if United Kingdom, with an excellent quality of services, had infected patients of those numbers that have been published, I find it difficult to believe that, you know, in other countries where quality is jeopardized because of healthcare systems and other sort of priorities, health priorities, I feel that we need the help of the members of the Community Advisory Board to press a little bit and get more transparent information, because we need the information to understand the pathology of the virus in the patients. Otherwise, we will not be able to vaccinate or give them the drugs.
However, I would like to add something. The United Kingdom and Italy, of the various countries that have been affected, do have good registries.
Yeah.
And even in these two countries, the number of thalassaemic patients
very low
infected is rather low compared.
Yeah.
So there may be some protective mechanism.
Some
that
kind
we don't know
of genetic protective measure, genetic factors that may, but you know, we need more.
Well, when it first came out, people were talking about protectiveness, like if you're an intermediate to malaria. I don't know. For me, the biggest, how I explain it at the moment is that all the doctors in charge of the thalassemia patients got very worried and very scared, because they could see that most of us had splenectomies and so forth. And in a way, it implanted fear in us. So we all stayed at home and we didn't do what a lot of other people do, which is go for walks and all the rest of it.
And that contributed to the protection. That contributed. This kind of fear contributed to the protection.
Now, as far as everybody's concerned, you know, I've sent you the National Hemoglobinopathy Panel's protocol that they've developed in England. The most fundamental and important point for me here is, how do you, if a patient appears to have fever and and temperature, it's immediately you should go to the hospital to be identified as corona or non-corona, because if you are non-coronavirus, it means that the patient is going through an infection, which could be any other of the very problematic infections like Klebsiella and so forth. So you need immediately to attend to the hospital. This is what the guidance say.
Yes.
And if you're identified as corona, because if it's Klebsiella, then you have to stop chelation immediately.
Yeah,
if it's not Klebsiella and it's corona, you have to intensify chelation, especially if you are a person with heart problems of any nature.
Actually,
So there is,
George, we are copying the British guidelines and we are sending them to all. We're sort of copying in a clear way how you in England, in the UK, have produced evidence of how to treat and where to not to misdiagnose fever with another.
I think that's the biggest worry is a misdiagnosis.
Both in thalassemia as well as in sickle cell disease.
Of course, which is more important.
Can be treated with antibiotics, not to be misdiagnosed for COVID-19. We are writing this down and we are sending this shortly by Friday, I think, to all our members, particularly our community advisory members. Although, having said that, there is a problem of various elements that the UK has put that are not present or applicable to most patients around the world, like, unfortunately, T2 star measurements. We are putting them into our guidelines, but who is reliably measuring, or what percentage of a global population knows milliseconds or LIC for that matter? But we are sticking to ferritin levels, pre-transfusion levels, which are common and applicable to the rest. Okay, a concluding remark, George, from you.
Well, we have to continue doing what we're doing, Androulla, and hopefully we will overcome this horrible thing that's locked us all in. I don't know, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I don't think it's going to finish very quickly. Yeah. I think there is going to still be months to come with worrying.
Months to come, but we must never stop fighting for standard care, for quality care, uninterrupted care in thalassemia, access to innovative drugs, and let us honor the Thalassaemia International Day by actually stating to our governments, through our social media, through mass media, that, you know, uninterrupted standard of care should go ahead, and that conversation should never stop about reaching for better care.
Yeah, about pandemic, hopefully we haven't any COVID-19 case with thalassemia or sickle cell disease till now. And in our thalassemia center, we have control desk on the end of the center, and medical personnel control everyone's temperature and condition. If there are any symptoms with COVID-19, we use the self-isolating room for these patients, and everyone try to use gloves and masks with start the entrance of the center. And about the blood shortage, as you know, we had faced also blood shortage at first, but after then we tried to voice to our government entities, big companies, and our first supporter, Hyderaliyah Foundation, our Vice President Mehriban Aliyeva. After our voice, we received immediately all of them support, and we haven't any problem with blood supplies till now, and I hope its frequency will be continuous till the end of the pandemic. And we have faced shortage of Disferil for 2 weeks. And after then, we connected with Novartis Azerbaijan company, and they said that it's about in Switzerland factory got stopped for pandemic. Now we are waiting for distribution of next part in a week or 2 weeks maybe.
Yeah. Seymour, because the time is running off and the webinar technology will shortly cut us off, can you tell us if there was any patient infected and whether with COVID, and whether you're discussing the use of these innovative drugs at all with your government?
No, we haven't any conversation about the new drugs with our government, because I think that after Europe, after maybe Turkey, we can do it with our government.
Okay, that will come to the next step. Thank you so much. So no infection with COVID in Azerbaijan.
Yes, no, not yet. Thalassaemia or sickle cell disease. And I would just show all of you, congratulate all of you, Thalassaemia International Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and let's hope for the best. Dr. Hadibur sent us his report, so I'm going to send it to all of you. We couldn't hear his voice. There are interesting facts in Iran, and we'll send it to all of you. Thank you so much. Keep safe, and please honor the Thalassaemia International Day in your media, in your centers across the world. We need to stay on board, we need to stay united, and we need to stay fighting. Thank you.
I agree. And
thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you very much.